But the reality is Donald Trump hasn't done anything yet other than attempt to ban people from some Muslim countries and pretend like he's a tough guy. In reality, he's not a tough guy. He hasn't succeeded in anything, and healthcare is the latest example of that.
Well, I won't waste a lot of time saying what I agree with you on. Couldn't agree with you more on Saudi Arabia. The only thing I'll say in response to that is every single general, every single presidential candidate wants to suck up to Saudi Arabia.
That's right.
Alright folks, today we're diving into a fiery debate between Coulter and Ana Kasparian. Anna's known for her sharp takes, but Anne is no stranger to calling out what she sees as flaws in liberal logic. This discussion touches on immigration, healthcare, and national security, some of the most polarizing issues out there. Now this clip is a little older, but the topics are still as relevant today as they were then. So let's break it down, see where the arguments land, and see who's actually making valid points. Let's get into it.
But the first thing that I want to address is this notion that he is not escalating war abroad, which is completely false. So within the first 3 months of his presidency, he actually escalated some of Obama's foreign policy in the form of drone strikes. In fact, it increased 423%. We are bombing like crazy in places like Yemen. Okay? And this whole notion that, oh, this Muslim ban is trying to keep the terrorists out of the country. Doesn't anyone else find it a little strange that Saudi Arabia, one of the countries that was obviously involved in what happened on 9/11, is not part of that Muslim ban? Right?
This is a fair critique, but let's not forget the bigger picture. Saudi's exclusion from the ban wasn't about Trump ignoring their past, it's a reflection of the long-standing US-Saudi relationship. Every president since Reagan has played ball with them, largely because of oil and strategic alliances. It's easy to pin this on Trump, but ignoring the bipartisan history of pandering to Saudi oversimplifies the issue. If you want to have this type of conversation, you need to bring everyone to the table and not just scapegoat Trump.
So, I know that the right wing has been very vociferous in terms of trying to make Saudi Arabia pay some consequences for it. Trump isn't making him pay any consequences because he has financial interest there. I want to go way back to what you said about, legislative wins and policy. When it comes to the issue of immigration, it's kind of fascinating because Obama got a lot of criticism for being soft on immigrants, right? But by the end of 2010, he had allocated $12 billion toward border security, and he had hired 40,000 new border agents. As a result, less undocumented immigrants were coming in, more of them were leaving. Between 2005 and 2010, we actually had 1.5 million undocumented immigrants leave the country, mostly because of economic reasons. The economy in Mexico was starting to do a little better and people wanted to leave. So there were wins when it came to Obama. He did do things, and he got a lot of criticism from the left when it came to his immigration policy. But the reality is Donald Trump hasn't done anything yet other than attempt to ban people from some Muslim countries and pretend like he's a tough guy. In reality, he's not a tough guy. He hasn't succeeded in anything, and healthcare is the latest example of that.
Well, I won't waste a lot of time saying what I agree with you on. Couldn't agree with you more on Saudi Arabia. The only thing I'll say in response to that is every single general, every single presidential candidate wants to suck up to Saudi Arabia.
That's right.
Trump is the most anti-war. And by the way, I'll throw one in for you. We're continuing this pointless Obama war in Afghanistan. We've been in there 17 years. What are we doing there? But all of his advisors and all of your favorite Republican, John McCain and Lindsey Graham, oh no, they want a full-blown, relationship with Saudi Arabia, and we'll go to war in Syria, we'll go to war in Russia. No, Trump is, at least on the war front, he's doing better than anybody else would have. As for, Obama being a kick-ass on, hard ass on immigration. No, this is a total lie. Two quick points I will make. One is this is a Washington metric that If you spend more money, you're getting serious about it. No, spending money on Border Patrol means more government workers, more unionized workers, more taxpayer money. It does not mean more enforcement. And what Obama did to make it look like they were doing enforcement is they redefined deportation.
This is such an important point that does not get enough attention. If you change the definition of deportation to include turning people away at the border, of course the numbers go up. It's a statistical illusion. It's like a company inflating their sales numbers by counting every inquiry as a sale. It makes the administration look tough without actually changing much on the ground. And this kind of spin isn't unique to Obama, but it's a reminder that numbers don't always tell the whole story.
Used to be, you know, for 50 years, you turn somebody away at the border, that's not a deportation. You turned them away at the border. Suddenly, under Obama, they started describing the turn them away at the border as a deportation. So, you know, it's like a failing school saying, we just changed the passing grade from 70 to 40. And look, all the kids passed. That's what we got under Obama. We're getting deportations.
You know, it's incredibly misleading to say that we need to build a wall, because the fact of the matter is we 100% already have a wall. We have a 2,000-mile-long border that we share with Mexico, right? About 1,000 miles are already covered by a wall. The rest, we're talking about a river, and we're
Technically, this is true, but the argument misses the broader issue. If parts of the border are covered and yet illegal crossings remain a problem, it suggests the current measures aren't enough. Saying we already have a wall doesn't address whether the wall is effective. It's like saying we already have locks on our doors while ignoring the broken window next to them. The debate shouldn't just be about whether walls exist, but whether they're doing what they're supposed to. You would think that's obvious enough.
talking about treacherous terrain. We're talking about mountains, okay? One of the reasons why he hasn't built the wall yet is because it's almost impossible to build the wall in the areas that we're talking about. There's a ton of issues with building the wall in the remaining area, including U.S. properties. We have resorts, we have U.S. properties that would essentially be divided in half if we continued building that wall. And by the way, it's a gigantic waste of resources. How about our taxpayer money actually go back to us as American people? How about that?
Okay. All right.
This is the thing with the left. They always like to use these buzzwords and say, the things that people want to hear, but never actually explain how to go about it, right? This idea, of course, is great in theory, but how exactly do you define going back to us? Border security, for example, is a service that benefits Americans by protecting our labor markets and public safety. The real debate is about efficiency. Is the money being spent wisely, or is it being wasted on bureaucracy? Instead of vague calls to give it back, we should demand transparency on how it's used and hold leaders accountable for waste. Throwing out these general statements oversimplifies a complex issue.
So you brought up healthcare. We're all thinking about healthcare, a huge issue this week. Trump care for now is dead. Is it?
We're only going to get about 3 questions if you keep this up.
Is it right for the president to say, let Obamacare fail?
I'll answer that in a minute. Everything she said about the wall was false. When liberals start
You guys can
complaining
look it
about
up
the
yourselves.
budget,
It's fine.
whenever a liberal is worried about federal spending,
Come on, it's not a presidential debate.
there's,
We're gonna actually answer the
your
question.
antenna should go up. There's 700 miles of fence. It's about as high as this table. And if a wall is so ineffective, then stop complaining about it. Not going to make a difference. Fine. Then don't be so hysterical. As for Obamacare, it's very simple. I think Trump made the mistake of allowing Paul Ryan to set the agenda. President Trump got to Washington with both political parties, the entire bureaucracy, and the entire legacy media against him. It wasn't his job to find the proper replacement for Obamacare. That should have been done by the Republicans, who've had 7 years to do it, and they didn't do it. It was a disaster. Unfortunately, this is the problem with my party. They accept the behemoth. They act like they're free marketers, and then they, our big change to give you an example, and it happens to be a perfect metaphor here, when Ronald Reagan ran for president, one of his campaign promises was eliminating the Department of Education. Today's Republican Party, their idea of Austrian economics is No child left behind. Well, no, that's not getting rid of the Department of Education and sending education back to the states. We want a real free market solution. I think what they should have done with Obamacare, which I have been writing about, I've been screaming from the rooftops, is don't touch it. The whole key is separating the welfare cases from the free market cases. You do not repeal Obamacare. Anybody who wants Obamacare gets it, but you pass a one-sentence law saying there shall be a nationwide free market in health insurance.
This is such a simple yet revolutionary idea. Keep the safety net for those who need it, but let the rest of us choose from a free market. Why should health insurance be any different from buying a car or a phone? Competition lowers prices and increases quality everywhere but healthcare, because the government has overregulated it to death. And Anne is right, we've had decades of evidence that the free market works. So the question is, why are we so afraid to let it do its job in healthcare? You guys can let me know in the comments as well.
That has been the problem for basically since the 60s with health insurance. You can't buy in health insurance the way you buy everything else. The free market works its magic. You get good products at good prices.
Anne's critiques of metric manipulation and free market principles were pretty on point and thought-provoking. And Anna's focus on inconsistencies in Trump's policies raised some valid concerns, but when you dive deeper, it's clear that some arguments are rooted in stronger evidence and logic than others. So as always, the truth lies in the details. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments below, who you agree with, what points were valid from your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more. So we'll see you guys in the next one.